war had ended, and for the first time in months, Captain Elias Varn felt a quiet that was almost unfamiliar. The sky over the neutral zone camp was streaked with pink and gold from the rising sun, but the light did little to soften the destruction around him. Smoke still rose from shattered buildings, scorched earth, and the twisted remains of alien war machines. Silence hung over the field like a fragile glass dome, ready to shatter at the slightest sound. Elias moved slowly through the debris, each step kicking up dust and ash. His uniform was torn in several places, and a long gash along his arm had been crudely stitched by the medics days before. The fight had been brutal. More brutal than any story he had ever imagined or told. Entire squadrons of humans and aliens had fallen on both sides, yet somehow humanity had endured. Somehow they had won. He paused at the entrance to his tent, the simple canvas structure that had survived the bombardment. Inside was where he hoped to find a few hours of peace, a moment to let the weight of victory sink in without the constant pressure of command. He expected nothing but solitude and the faint smell of old equipment, his own company for the first time in weeks. But when he stepped inside, the quiet shattered. Sitting on a low cot in the center of the tent was a figure that made him freeze in place. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. The alien was tall, graceful, with skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light of the tent. Her eyes were large, deep, and intelligent, reflecting a mix of curiosity and calculation that immediately made him uneasy. She wore garments that glowed softly with a faint blue hue, woven with patterns he couldn't begin to understand. "Captain Varn," she said, her voice melodic and calm, yet carrying an authority he couldn't ignore. "I am Liara. The Queen sent me." Elias blinked. His mind raced, trying to comprehend what this meant. "The Queen sent her? To him?" He had expected a medal, perhaps a message, maybe even a commendation in front of his peers. But this was something entirely different. I'm not sure I understand," he said finally, his voice rough from disuse. "Why are you here?" Lara tilted her head slightly, observing him as one might observe a subject in an experiment. "My queen wishes to honor the humans who displayed extraordinary courage and ingenuity in the war. You are among them. She has sent me to study, to learn, and to share knowledge. I am your guest." Elias's eyebrows furrowed. "Guest in my tent?" "Yes," she said simply, as though it were the most natural thing in the universe. "I am here to witness human behavior firsthand, to understand your ways, your decisions, your strengths, to see what makes you remarkable." Elias ran a hand over his face. He had faced enemies who were ruthless, and aliens whose minds were more alien than anything he had ever imagined. Yet he had never felt a tension like this. It was not fear exactly, but a strange mix of curiosity, caution, and something he could not name.
"Remarkable?" he repeated.
"We just survived a war. Most of us are exhausted, bloody, and tired of surviving." Liara stood and moved toward the small table at the side of the tent. Her movements were fluid, elegant, almost impossible. She picked up a small device that seemed to float between her fingers, emitting a faint hum. "That is exactly what I wish to understand," she said. "Your ability to endure."
"To adapt? To overcome?"
Elias crossed his arms, trying to hide the nervousness creeping up his spine. He had spent years studying alien tactics, preparing for wars that could have spanned light years, but nothing in his training prepared him for this. A living, breathing alien observer, sent directly to him. Not as a prisoner, not as an enemy, but as a reward. It didn't make sense.
"I don't know if I'm the right person for," he began, then stopped. There was a knock on the tent flap.
Both of them turned to see a young human officer standing there, holding a small tray with water and rations. He looked between Elias and Liara, eyes wide. "Captain, I was told to bring this to you. I don't know if you've been informed, but... The officer's words trailed off as he realized the alien sitting in Elias's tent. His jaw dropped slightly. Yes, Elias said, trying to regain some sense of authority. I've been informed. The officer handed over the tray and backed out, closing the flap quietly behind him. Elias turned back to Liara. So, what now? Liara smiled faintly.
Now we learn. I wish to observe how you think, how you recover, how you respond.
And perhaps, in turn, you might learn something from me. Elias took a deep breath. He was tired, weary, and suspicious, yet he couldn't deny a flicker of intrigue. An alien had been sent to him, to study humanity, not to conquer it, not to fight it. There was a rare honor in that, though he wasn't entirely sure how to feel about it yet. Over the next hour, they talked. Liara asked questions about the war, about human strategy, about how humans managed to survive when resources were low and enemies were relentless. Elias answered carefully, revealing enough to be honest, but not enough to betray weaknesses he wasn't ready to expose. She listened, nodding, occasionally tilting her head in curiosity. Her questions were not probing for battle secrets alone. They were probing for understanding of humanity itself, how humans made decisions, how they valued life, how they maintained hope.
It is fascinating, Liara said finally.
Your species survives through a combination of creativity, persistence, and unpredictability. Most species I have studied are too rigid, too controlled, too predictable.
Humans, you are chaotic yet effective. Elias couldn't help but chuckle softly. Chaotic, huh? That's one way to put it? Liara's eyes sparkled faintly.
I would like to see this chaos in action, she said. Not just in victory, but in the everyday. How you build, repair, lead, and care for one another after a war has ended.
Elias leaned back, considering her words.
He realized that she was not here as a soldier, a spy, or even a diplomat. She was here as an observer, a student of humanity. And if that was the Queen's gift, then it was. Extraordinary, in a strange, complicated way. Night fell over the camp, and the tent grew quiet. Outside, Elias could hear the soft murmur of other soldiers, some celebrating the war's end, others quietly mourning lost comrades. Inside, Liara sat cross-legged on the cot, her posture perfect, her eyes attentive even as sleep beckoned.
Will you stay long? Elias asked finally, his voice low.
For as long as my queen requires, she said. I will stay to learn, to observe, and to ensure that the bridge between our species is strong. Elias nodded slowly. He realized that the war had given humanity more than victory. It had given them attention, respect, even from those who had once seemed unfathomable. The presence of Liara in his tent was strange and unsettling, yes, but it was also a reminder that humans were more than just fighters. They were survivors, innovators, teachers, even to the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. He felt a sense of pride, tempered with caution. There was much to learn from her, and perhaps much for her to learn from him. The camp outside might be scarred, the war might be over, but a new challenge was beginning. One that did not involve weapons, but understanding. As the first night passed, Elias found himself talking quietly to Liara about small things, the routines of the camp, the behavior of the soldiers, the way humans managed to keep some sense of normalcy in the midst of chaos. She listened, absorbing every detail with a level of attention he had rarely seen, and occasionally offering insights about alien society that made him pause and consider new perspectives. He realized then that this reward was not a simple gesture. It was a responsibility. Hosting Liara meant representing humanity at its best, showing her what it meant to be human, not through victories, but through the quiet strength that persisted even after the battles had ended. Hours later, as Elias finally drifted into a tentative sleep, he knew one thing for certain. The war was over, but the story was far from finished. The arrival of Liara was just the beginning of a new chapter, one that could change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. And somewhere deep in his mind, he felt the thrill of it. The dangerous, exhilarating possibility that humans might have more to teach the universe than anyone had ever imagined. Elias awoke to the quiet hum of the alien device Liara had left on the table. It glowed faintly, casting long shadows across the canvas walls of his tent. The first rays of dawn filtered through the fabric, painting the interior with soft gold. For a moment, he felt almost peaceful, until he remembered that Liara was still there, watching, waiting. "Good morning," he said, rubbing his eyes.
Good morning, Captain, Liara replied, her voice calm and precise. She was sitting cross-legged on the cot, her posture straight as ever, her gaze attentive.
"Did you rest?" Elias gave a small nod. "As much as one can rest in a tent after a war, I suppose." Liara tilted her head slightly. "Sleep is essential to understanding human thought and behavior. Your brain recovers during rest, processing experiences. I will be observing you closely."
He sighed. She had a way of making even simple statements feel like lessons in advanced science.
"I think humans can manage just fine without constant observation," he said. But there was a hint of a smile on his face. Liara smiled faintly, the corners of her mouth curving in a way that was almost human.
Perhaps. But my queen has sent me here for a reason.
"Your species is unpredictable. I must see it firsthand." Elias rubbed the back of his neck. He wasn't sure whether to feel honored or anxious. Being observed wasn't new to him. Soldiers and commanders were always watched, but Liara wasn't human. She didn't judge by the same standards. He couldn't predict her thoughts, her intentions, or how she might respond to human behavior. "If you're going to watch, at least know this. Humans are messy, chaotic, and sometimes illogical. That's part of what makes us survive."
Liara tilted her head, considering his words. Messy and illogical, yet effective. Fascinating.
"I will watch closely." The day began quietly, with Elias showing Lyra the small routines that kept the camp functioning. They walked among the soldiers, who eyed Lyra with a mixture of awe and fear. Some whispered rumors about why an alien envoy would be sent to a human hero. Others speculated that she might have special powers or advanced technology.
Lyra observed without comment, her eyes taking in everything, the way humans moved, spoke, and interacted.
She asked questions about the chain of command, the way decisions were made in moments of stress, and the methods humans used to repair equipment with limited resources. "You improvise often," she noted, crouching to examine a partially repaired drone. "Your solutions are rarely elegant, but they are effective." Elias chuckled. "That's the human way. We do what works."
Elegance comes later, if we survive. Liara's eyes flickered with curiosity. Your adaptability is remarkable.
"I am learning more about your species in these few hours than I expected in a lifetime of observation." By mid-afternoon, the two returned to the tent. Elias poured them each a cup of water from a ration container. Lyra accepted it gracefully, holding it with both hands, as if it were something precious. "I have observed much today," she said, her tone thoughtful. "Your species does not rely solely on strength or technology. You rely on intuition, creativity, and the willingness to take risks. That is rare." Elias leaned back, sipping his water. "We have to. The universe doesn't wait for perfection. You adapt, or you die. That's been the rule since the first humans left Earth." Liara nodded, her large eyes focused on him. "And yet, you survive. You thrive where others fail."
I wish to understand how this works.
"Perhaps in understanding you, My queen can better understand what makes humans remarkable. Elias looked at her, trying to gauge her intentions. You're not just here to watch. You want to learn from us. From me.
Yes, Liara said simply. Observation is only the first step.
Learning requires engagement, participation. I must see not only what you do, but why you do it. Elias considered this. It was one thing to fight alongside humans or aliens in battle. It was another entirely to teach an alien about humanity. Fine, he said finally. But you need to understand something. Humans are flawed. We make mistakes. We sometimes act on emotion rather than reason. If you expect perfection, you will be disappointed. Liara's expression did not change. I expect nothing. I am here to witness, to understand, and perhaps to offer insight from my perspective. Your imperfections are as valuable as your successes.
The next few hours were spent in practical demonstrations.
Elias showed her the intricacies of repairing a damaged transport drone using only scavenged parts. Liara watched intently, asking questions about why certain choices were made, why some shortcuts were acceptable while others were not.
You modify without instruction, she observed. Your species does not require detailed schematics for every repair.
You rely on judgment. Experience, Elias corrected. And luck. Don't forget luck.
Liara tilted her head. Experience and luck.
Not a formula I am accustomed to, yet effective. As evening fell, they moved to a small outdoor area near the tent. Elias pointed toward the ruined landscape around them. This is what war leaves behind, he said quietly. Bow, 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 scars, loss. Sometimes lessons if you survive long enough to learn them. Lyra studied the devastation in silence.
Your species bears heavy burdens, yet persists. This resilience, it is a form of strength, perhaps stronger than any weapon.
I wish to study this further. Elias felt a flicker of pride. Humans were often underestimated by other species. Many assumed that advanced technology alone determined victory. They did not see the human factor, the creativity, the courage, the ability to act when all else fails. That was what Lyra had come to study. That was what made him, and his species, remarkable. Night deepened, and a soft wind rustled through the camp. Soldiers moved quietly among the tents, some tending to fires, others writing letters or quietly talking to companions. Elias and Liara remained outside, speaking softly. You do not fear the unknown, Elias said at one point, gesturing to the stars above. Many humans do, but we keep going anyway. That's how we survive. Lyra's gaze lifted to the sky. Fear is a useful tool, but it must not dominate. I see that humans understand this instinctively.
You act despite fear. That is admirable.
For a moment, silence settled between them, filled only by the distant sounds of the camp. Elias realized that Liara was not just observing him. She was observing humanity itself, through his actions, his words, and even his quiet moments of reflection. You are learning quickly, Elias said, a small smile on his face. You ask questions, you watch, you understand more than most humans would at this stage. I'm impressed. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Learning is the purpose. Observation without understanding is meaningless. And your species provides lessons beyond the battlefield. Morality, resilience, creativity. These are qualities even my queen does not fully comprehend.
Elias felt a surge of responsibility.
This wasn't just about him anymore. He was representing humanity to an entire alien species. Every word, Every gesture mattered. He had to show that humans were capable not only of surviving war, but of inspiring respect through their ingenuity and spirit. As the night deepened, Elias led Liara back toward the tent. She paused at the entrance, her eyes scanning the camp. "I will rest here," she said, "but I remain alert. Observation continues, even in sleep." Elias shook his head slightly, a mixture of amusement and exasperation on his face. "You never stop, do you?" "No," she said simply, her voice calm. "And I do not tire." "There is much to learn, Captain." He nodded, realizing that this would be the rhythm of the coming days. War was over, but a new kind of challenge had begun, one that required patience, understanding, and a willingness to share knowledge. Elias felt the weight of it, but also a strange sense of excitement. In the quiet hours before dawn, he sat outside the tent, staring at the stars. He thought of the battles they had won, the sacrifices made, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. And he thought of Liara, an alien observer, a representative of a queen, a reminder that humans were more than warriors. They were teachers, innovators, and perhaps even something extraordinary to the galaxy. And for the first time in a long while, Elias felt that humanity's story was far from over. In fact, it was only beginning. The first days of peace had brought a strange rhythm to the camp. Soldiers moved cautiously, repairing equipment, tending to wounds, and slowly regaining a sense of normalcy. Elias had settled into a routine with Liara, showing her how humans survived beyond the battlefield, how they repaired machinery, managed resources, and found moments of quiet even in the aftermath of war. But peace, as it often did, proved fragile. Late in the afternoon, Elias noticed unusual activity on the horizon. Smoke plumes rose not from their camp, but from a distant ridge, moving faster than the natural winds could carry. He squinted, trying to make sense of the shapes. Alien vehicles, unfamiliar in design, moved in formation. The ridge trembled under their weight. "Liara!" he called, pointing to the horizon. "We might have company, and I don't think they come in peace." Liara's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed as she focused on the incoming shapes. "They are not part of the coalition that was defeated," she said calmly. "This is unexpected. My sensors indicate advanced weaponry and aggressive intent." Elias's jaw tightened. "Figures. Just when we start thinking we can rest." He ran back to the camp command center, alerting the soldiers and rallying those capable of defense. "Prepare for combat," he shouted. "Unknown forces approaching from the ridge. Shields up, weapons ready." Liara followed silently, observing the humans as they scrambled into action. She seemed calm, almost detached, but her mind worked quickly, analyzing patterns and tactics.
"Your species organizes quickly," she noted.
Efficient, though chaotic. Elias nodded without looking at her. "That chaos keeps us alive. Every time someone expects order, humans surprise them with adaptability." As the alien forces drew closer, their intent became clear. They fired energy pulses at a distant outpost, reducing it to rubble in seconds. Elias and the soldiers ducked behind barricades, returning fire with what little they had repaired so far. "Captain," Liara said, "I can enhance your targeting systems, but you must coordinate with me directly. Your soldiers are unprepared for this level of firepower." Elias hesitated. Trusting an alien with human weapons in the middle of a sudden attack was risky, but he had no choice.
"Do it," he said finally.
Liara extended her hands over the control panel. The device hummed, lights flashing in patterns Elias didn't fully understand. Suddenly, the targeting systems of the camp improved drastically. Energy pulses from human turrets now aligned with precision he had not seen before. "Impressive," he muttered, scanning the battlefield. "All right, everyone, follow her lead." "Focus fire on the front line," the humans responded, coordinating with the help of Lara's enhancements. The enemy faltered under the sudden efficiency, their vehicles exploding in flashes of orange and blue energy. Yet Elias knew this was only the beginning. They were outnumbered, and reinforcements would arrive soon. "Captain," Liara said, her tone serious, "they will attempt a flanking maneuver. If they reach the supply area, your defenses will collapse." Elias nodded. "We'll need a diversion. I want volunteers to set up a false route using the remaining vehicles, draw them away from the supplies." The plan was risky. The volunteers could be exposed to heavy fire, but Elias had no other choice. He quickly selected the soldiers, briefing them in terse, precise instructions. Liara watched silently, absorbing every detail. "Humans take risks their logic would not dictate," she observed. "Yet often these risks succeed." Fascinating. By nightfall, the enemy had drawn closer and the diversion was in place. Explosions lit up the dark horizon as the enemy vehicles pursued the decoy squad. Elias and the remaining defenders focused on protecting the supply area, using every resource at their disposal. Liara moved among the command stations, adjusting the energy shields, directing fire, and offering strategic insights. Her presence was a force multiplier, but she was careful not to overshadow the humans. She guided, suggested, and enhanced, but allowed them to act, to make choices, to fight as humans did. Elias felt a mixture of respect and unease. Trusting Liara had been a gamble, but it was one that paid off. Humanity's ingenuity, combined with her advanced knowledge, turned what could have been a disaster into a hard-fought advantage. Hours passed in a blur of movement, strategy, and combat. By midnight, the enemy began to retreat, their losses severe. Human and alien energy alike lit the battlefield, smoke rising from the wreckage of vehicles and destroyed equipment. Elias wiped sweat from his brow and took a deep breath. "We held them," he said quietly, almost to himself. "We actually held them." Liara stood beside him, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "You humans adapt rapidly under pressure. Your species' resilience is remarkable. Even without superior numbers or technology, you managed to turn the tide." Elias smiled faintly, exhaustion heavy on his shoulders. "That's the human way. We survive because we have to, and we improvise because we must." She looked at him with an intensity that made him uneasy. "Your species is more than survivors, Captain. You are teachers, leaders, and innovators. Today, you demonstrated all of these qualities." Elias felt a flicker of pride. He had faced many enemies, but this battle was different. It wasn't just about survival. It was about proving humanity's ability to think, adapt, and overcome. And Liara, silent and observant, had seen it all. "Captain," she said, breaking the silence, "I will be reporting this battle to my queen." "Your species' capability has exceeded all expectations. You are not merely warriors. You are a civilization to be respected." Elias looked at her, fatigue mixed with disbelief. "I don't know if I deserve that," he admitted. "We just did what we had to do. We survived."
That is exactly why you deserve it, Liara said. Survival alone is not enough.
Humans achieve victory through ingenuity, courage, and persistence. That combination, it is unique. It is powerful. The night grew quieter, the remnants of the battle now reduced to distant embers. Elias moved through the camp, checking on the wounded, ensuring that the remaining defenses were intact. Soldiers nodded to him, exhaustion etched on their faces, but pride shining in their eyes. They had held their ground. They had survived, and they had done it together. Liara followed, observing the human interactions, the way soldiers helped each other, shared supplies, and offered comfort to the injured. She did not intervene, but every detail was noted, every gesture catalogued in her mind.
"You value each life," she said finally, her voice soft.
"Even in war, you do not treat humans as expendable resources. That is unusual among the species I have observed." Elias shrugged, though he knew she was right. "We are flawed," he said quietly. But we understand the cost of life. We can't ignore it. That's part of why we survive. They reached his tent as the first hints of dawn touched the horizon. Elias sat down heavily, rubbing his arms and shoulders. Liara remained standing, her posture impeccable, but her eyes revealed a quiet respect.
You have taught me much today, she said. Not only about tactics, but about your species' character.
Your decisions, your willingness to risk, your empathy, all of it is remarkable. Elias leaned back, exhaustion threatening to pull him under, but he felt a strange sense of satisfaction. The day had been terrifying, exhausting, and dangerous, but it had also proven something important. Humanity was not just a survivor. It was a force to be respected, even by the most advanced civilizations. You're going to report all of this to your queen, he said finally. She's going to think humans are even more unpredictable than we already know we are. Liara's lips curved in a faint smile.
Perhaps, but she will also respect you and your species for what you have accomplished today.
That respect, it will open doors. Opportunities for diplomacy, for learning, and perhaps for lasting peace. Elias nodded slowly. The war had ended, but battles, both large and small, would continue. Humanity's strength lay not just in weapons, but in its ability to think, adapt, and endure. And with Lyra's presence, he realized that this lesson was now being witnessed by the galaxy itself. As they entered the tent, Elias felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The battle was over, but the future held unknown challenges, alliances, and opportunities. And for the first time in a long time, he felt that humans were not just surviving, they were capable of shaping the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. Liara sat down beside him, not too close, not too far, her gaze steady and thoughtful. "Rest now, Captain," she said. "Tomorrow we will continue our observations. There is still much for me to learn, and much for you to teach." Elias nodded, letting the exhaustion finally take him. He knew that with Liara observing, with humans proving their worth in both battle and ingenuity, a new chapter was beginning. A chapter that would test their limits, challenge their understanding, and perhaps reveal humanity's true place in the stars. And as sleep finally claimed him, he felt a strange certainty. The war was behind them, but the story of humanity was just beginning. And for the first time, he understood that survival alone was never the measure of greatness. Innovation, courage, and the ability to rise in the face of impossible odds, that was what made humans extraordinary. The day after the battle, the camp was quieter. Soldiers moved among the repaired vehicles and tents, checking equipment and treating minor injuries. The destruction from the previous night still smoldered in the distance, a stark reminder of how fragile peace could be. Elias walked through the camp, his steps measured, his mind heavy with reflection. He had faced countless battles in his career, but yesterday had been different. It was not only about survival. It was about proving humanity's ability to act under pressure, to adapt, and to overcome challenges that seemed impossible. And it was being witnessed, carefully catalogued, by Liara. Liara moved silently beside him, her gaze sweeping over the camp. She did not speak immediately, but Elias knew she was processing everything, analyzing every human interaction and decision. "Captain," she said finally, her voice soft but firm, "I have completed a preliminary assessment of your species' performance during the attack. The results are beyond my expectations." Elias's raised an eyebrow.
Beyond expectations?
"We survived, but don't tell me that counts as extraordinary." She smiled faintly, a gesture that seemed almost human in its subtlety. "Survival alone is not enough to impress my queen, but the combination of your species' adaptability, courage, teamwork, and moral judgment, these qualities are what make humans remarkable. Even when outnumbered and outgunned, you managed not only to survive but to protect the weak and preserve your resources." Elias nodded slowly, feeling a surge of quiet pride. "That's what we try to do. We don't always succeed, but we try."
Liara's eyes glimmered.
That willingness to try, even under dire circumstances, is rare.
Most species I have observed rely on strict logic or overwhelming force. Humans combine logic with creativity and emotion, creating solutions that even advanced technology cannot predict. They reached the command center, where a map of the surrounding area displayed the positions of soldiers, supply lines, and the remnants of the enemy forces. Elias gestured toward it. This is the situation now. We've repaired what we can, and the rest, well, we'll rebuild.
Liara studied the map carefully.
Your planning under duress was impressive. Your ability to delegate, adapt, and respond to changing conditions demonstrates not only skill but understanding of your own limitations.
You recognize when improvisation is necessary. Elias leaned against the table, watching her closely. You're not just praising humans.
You're analyzing us. Reporting everything.
Yes, she said simply, and your species deserves to be understood.
My queen will be informed not only of your military tactics but also of the qualities that make humans exceptional. You are leaders, teachers, and innovators, capable of contributing to the galaxy in ways beyond mere combat. Elias felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. Liara was not a casual observer. She was a representative of her queen, and her report would influence how humans were perceived across the stars. Every action, every decision, every interaction mattered. He sighed.
So, what you're saying is, humans just earned a reputation before the galaxy even knows our name. Liara's expression did not change, but her tone carried approval.
And you, Captain, have played a significant role in shaping that perception. Your actions demonstrate the human spirit, the willingness to persevere, and the ability to innovate under pressure. For a moment, Elias felt the weight of that responsibility. Recognition was one thing. Being a symbol for an entire species was another. Yet, he also understood that humans had earned it, not through luck or power alone, but through courage, resilience, and ingenuity. Later that day, Liara requested a private audience with Elias in his tent. She had brought a small device, unfamiliar in design but familiar in function, a communication link to her queen. She adjusted it carefully, ensuring that it would transmit her observations accurately and securely.
I will report directly to my queen, she said. She wishes to know the full extent of humanity's performance, both in strategy and in character.
Your species' actions during the battle and your leadership in protecting your people will be highlighted.
Elias looked at her. Considering the gravity of her words,
You're essentially recommending humans as allies. That's
huge.
Even for me, that's a lot to take in.
Lyra's eyes met his. It is more than an endorsement.
It is recognition of potential. My queen seeks not only to understand, but to form connections with species capable of contributing to stability and knowledge in the galaxy. Humans have demonstrated that potential.
Elias leaned back in his chair. So, what happens now?
Do you go back and tell her everything and we wait? Liara shook her head. Observation does not end here.
I will continue to study, to engage, and to learn. But your actions have already set a precedent.
Your species is now on the map, not just as survivors of a war, but as contributors to a larger vision. Elias considered her words, feeling a strange combination of relief and anticipation. The war was over, yet a new kind of challenge was beginning, one that involved diplomacy, understanding, and influence on a galactic scale.
You know, he said quietly, I never thought I'd spend my days teaching an alien about humans, yet here we are.
Lyra's lips curved in a faint smile. And I never thought I would learn so much from a species I considered primitive. Yet your people teach me daily. Adaptability, creativity, courage. Qualities that cannot be programmed or learned in isolation.
Elias chuckled softly.
Primitive, that's one way to put it.
Primitive only in comparison to technological advancement, Liara said. But advancement alone does not create greatness. Your species demonstrates greatness in ways that matter.
The tent grew quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the communication device and the faint sounds of the camp outside. Elias thought about the soldiers he commanded, the allies they had made, and the potential of humans to shape not just wars but the future. Later, as the sun began to set, Liara requested to observe a human ritual, a simple act of reflection and remembrance for those lost in battle. Elias gathered a small group of soldiers, and they moved to a cleared area where they could sit in silence. Each soldier shared stories, honored fallen comrades, and reflected on the cost of victory. Liara watched quietly, her large eyes attentive, her posture still and composed. She did not interfere, but she catalogued every gesture, every word, every subtle expression. She seemed particularly fascinated by the way humans combined grief with hope, loss with determination, and remembrance with the drive to continue living. After the ritual, she spoke softly. Your species demonstrates a balance rarely observed. You honor your past, yet you continue forward. That resilience, that ability to carry both sorrow and hope, is remarkable. It will be remembered. Elias nodded slowly, feeling the truth of her words. Humans were often underestimated, dismissed as primitive or reckless, yet their ability to endure, to learn, and to innovate, even in the face of tragedy, was what set them apart. That night, Liara prepared to send her first formal report to the Queen. Elias watched as she worked, adjusting the device, ensuring accuracy, and selecting the details that would best convey humanity's strengths. "You are thorough," he said, a note of admiration in his voice. "I must be," she replied. "Misrepresentation could lead to misunderstanding. My queen must see the full picture. The ingenuity, courage, and moral judgment of your species. Humans are not merely survivors. You are creators, innovators, and protectors." Elias felt a sense of pride swell within him. The war had tested humanity, but this recognition, this validation from a species more advanced than most humans could comprehend, was something different. It was a reminder that survival alone was not enough. Humanity's true strength lay in its ability to think, adapt, and inspire respect across the galaxy. As the report was transmitted, Elias realized that the war had given humanity more than victory. It had given them attention, respect, and the possibility of influence beyond their home planet. And much of that recognition would be guided by Liara, whose eyes now saw humans in ways few other species ever had. Liara turned to him, her expression unreadable, but her tone calm. "Your species has impressed me, Captain, not only in battle, but in character, creativity, and resilience. I will continue to learn from you, and in turn, your species will be recognized for its potential."
Elias nodded slowly. "Then let's hope we can live up to that potential. It's one thing to survive a war. It's another to be trusted by someone who can change the way the galaxy sees us." Lyra inclined her head. "Trust is earned through actions, Captain."
"And your species has taken the first steps toward that trust." The camp grew still as night deepened. Soldiers rested, repaired, or quietly shared their thoughts. Elias moved through the tents, checking on his people, feeling the weight of leadership and the possibilities ahead. Humanity had proven itself in combat, but now it had the opportunity to prove itself in diplomacy, innovation, and understanding. And as Elias finally returned to his own tent, he knew one thing for certain: humanity's story was no longer confined to survival. It was a story of growth, respect, and recognition, a story that had only just begun. Liara remained by his side, a silent witness, a teacher, and a learner, ensuring that every action, every decision, and every moment of human ingenuity would be seen, understood, and shared with the Queen. The war was behind them, but the future, bright, uncertain, and full of possibility, stretched out across the stars. And for the first time, Elias felt that humans were not just survivors. They were capable of shaping the galaxy, influencing other species, and leaving a mark that would endure long after the battles were over. The weeks after the battle passed in a mix of repair, reflection, and cautious optimism. The camp slowly returned to order. Soldiers rebuilt their equipment, tended to their wounds, and shared stories of survival. Yet the memory of the attack lingered, a reminder of the universe's dangers. Elias walked among his people every day, checking on progress and offering guidance, while Liara remained by his side, quietly observing and taking careful notes. The alien's presence had become familiar, though still unusual. She no longer needed explanations for every routine or gesture. She understood human habits, emotions, and methods of problem-solving. She also understood their resilience. That quality, more than any weapon or device, fascinated her. One morning, Elias found Liara standing near the camp perimeter, gazing at the rising sun. The light reflected off her skin, making it shimmer like liquid silver. He approached quietly.
"You seem contemplative," he said.
Liara turned toward him.
"I am considering the implications of what we have accomplished here, Captain. Humanity has demonstrated qualities my queen had not fully anticipated."
Courage, ingenuity, moral judgment, these traits are rare and remarkable. Elias smiled faintly. "It's been a hard lesson for both of us, I suppose. You've seen humans at their best and worst."
"Yes," she replied.
"But what I have seen goes beyond mere survival. Humans inspire trust, collaboration, and respect. That is a power greater than weapons. It is a force that can shape alliances and influence entire civilizations." Elias nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. Humanity had survived wars, adapted to countless challenges, and now stood at the threshold of recognition among advanced species. But it was not just luck. It was their decisions, their moral compass, and their creativity that had brought them this far. Liara continued, "I have transmitted my reports to my queen. She is impressed. She wishes to establish formal relations with your species, not as conquerors or subordinates, but as allies and partners. Your ingenuity and resilience have earned respect that will endure across the galaxy." Elias allowed himself a quiet moment of pride. Humanity had fought wars, faced unimaginable odds, and survived. Now they were being acknowledged not for their technology or power alone, but for their spirit and character.
"What does that mean for us?" he asked.
"For humanity," Liara's eyes glimmered. "It means opportunity, diplomatic exchanges, knowledge sharing, and collaborative ventures. Your species will be observed, studied, and engaged by others, not as a curiosity, but as a valued partner. Humans have demonstrated that survival is not enough. Greatness comes from innovation, leadership, and moral strength." Elias looked around the camp, seeing the soldiers repairing equipment, sharing meals, and tending to one another. These people, his people, were the reason humans had survived, the reason they had earned respect. Their courage, quick thinking, and teamwork had turned the tide in battle, and had impressed even an alien observer.
"And it all starts with what?" he asked, gesturing vaguely at the camp. "A small group of humans trying to do their best?"
Liara nodded.
"Exactly. Small actions, when guided by courage and intellect, can influence outcomes far beyond what anyone might predict. Humans have shown that the universe does not always reward strength alone. It rewards adaptability, creativity, and perseverance." The weeks continued, and the camp became a place of learning. Liara worked alongside the humans, teaching advanced techniques from her civilization while learning their methods of problem-solving and improvisation. She shared knowledge about energy manipulation, advanced engineering principles, and medical treatments. In return, she observed how humans combined these ideas with their creativity, inventing solutions that were often simpler, faster, or more resourceful than her own species' methods. One day, an emergency drill was called, a simulation of an alien attack designed to test the camp's preparedness. Humans and Liara worked together seamlessly. Liara suggested adjustments based on her advanced understanding,
but it was the humans' quick thinking and improvisation that turned the drill into a success. Shields were adjusted, defenses reorganized, and resources allocated with remarkable efficiency. Elias watched from a command post, a faint smile on his face. "See, Liara?" he said. "That's what I mean. Humans don't just follow instructions. They adapt, invent, and take risks. That's why we survive and thrive." Lyra's eyes glimmered with approval. "Indeed."
You are teaching me as much as I am teaching you. Humans combine logic with creativity and emotion in ways my species rarely does.
That is a strength, and it will guide your species to places few have imagined. In the evenings, Elias and Liara would sit together outside the tent, watching the stars. They spoke of the war, of survival, and of the possibilities ahead. Liara shared insights into alien civilizations, their technologies and philosophies, while Elias explained the human spirit, their history, and the drive to explore and innovate.
"You humans," Liara said one evening, "you have endured more than most civilizations ever face, and yet you continue forward, seeking knowledge, creating solutions, and inspiring trust."
"That is remarkable." Elias chuckled softly.
"We survive because we have to, but we thrive because we want to."
Humans aren't just fighters, we're thinkers, inventors, and dreamers. And sometimes, that makes all the difference.
Liara studied him for a long moment. "That is precisely why my queen wishes to establish contact. Your species demonstrates qualities that cannot be measured in weapons, territory, or technology alone."
Humans inspire, influence, and create possibilities. You are more than survivors. You are catalysts for change. Word of humanity's achievements spread quickly across allied systems. Messages arrived from other civilizations expressing curiosity and respect for the species that had not only survived a brutal war, but had done so with creativity, courage, and moral integrity. Alliances were proposed, knowledge exchanges offered, and invitations extended for humans to participate in interstellar councils. Elias realized that humanity's story was changing. No longer were they simply warriors or survivors. They were recognized as contributors, innovators, and leaders.
And it had begun with simple actions: quick thinking, adaptability, courage, and the willingness to act with integrity even under pressure.
One morning, Liara approached Elias with a formal communication from her queen. The message was simple, yet powerful. Humanity had earned the right to participate as equals in interstellar diplomacy and knowledge exchange. Their contributions in warfare, innovation, and moral judgment had established them as a species worthy of respect and collaboration. Elias felt a surge of pride. He thought of every soldier who had fought alongside him, every engineer who had repaired equipment under fire, and every human who had persevered despite fear and uncertainty. Humanity's potential was finally being recognized on a scale he had never imagined.
"You've seen it firsthand," Liara said, her tone calm but firm. "Humans are remarkable."
You do not merely survive. You adapt, innovate, and inspire. That is why your species is now valued by my queen and other civilizations. Elias nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility tempered by satisfaction. Humanity had proven itself in ways that went beyond battlefields. They had demonstrated that courage, creativity, and moral integrity could shape the galaxy itself. The camp had become a symbol, not just of survival, but of human ingenuity and potential. News of their achievements inspired other human settlements, encouraging innovation, exploration, and collaboration. Humans began to participate in knowledge exchanges with alien species, sharing ideas, strategies, and technologies, while learning from others. Liara continued to observe, teach, and learn. Her presence had started as a mystery, a reward from her queen, but it had become a bridge, connecting humans to a wider universe, showing them that their ingenuity and spirit mattered beyond their home planet. Elias watched her work with the soldiers, teaching and guiding without taking control. She had learned to respect human initiative, understanding that humans thrived when given the freedom to think, adapt, and act. And he had learned that even an alien observer could teach lessons, not through force, but through shared knowledge and perspective. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elias stood at the edge of the camp and looked up at the stars. He thought of the battles, the sacrifices, and the ingenuity that had brought humanity this far. He thought of Liara, of the queen who had sent her, and of the recognition they had earned. The war was behind them, but the future stretched out across the galaxy, full of possibilities. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were participants, innovators, and leaders. And Elias knew that the true measure of their greatness was not in victories alone, but in their ability to adapt, create, and inspire across the stars. Liara joined him, her gaze fixed on the same horizon. "The universe is vast," she said softly, "but humans have shown they can shape it, not through domination, but through creativity, courage, and integrity. That is a legacy worth preserving." Elias smiled.
"We'll do more than survive, Lara. We'll show them who humans really are."
"We'll teach, build, explore, and maybe, just maybe, make the galaxy a little better than we found it." She nodded. "And I will be here to observe, to learn, and to share what your species has accomplished."
"Humans are extraordinary, Captain. That is undeniable."
As night fell over the camp, the stars above shimmered like distant beacons of possibility. Elias felt a quiet certainty in his chest. Humanity had faced the worst the universe could throw at them, and emerged not just alive, but recognized, respected, and ready to shape their own destiny. The war had ended, but humanity's story was only beginning. And for the first time, Elias knew with confidence that humans were not just survivors of a cruel universe. They were a species capable of greatness, capable of inspiring others, and capable of leaving a lasting mark among the stars.